Okay, part two, chapter 16, I think. Grievance is a cottage industry. Now, imagine a country. You don't have to imagine because I'm about to describe our country. Imagine a country where half the country is set, dead set, on convincing larger and larger numbers of people that they are not to blame for their own actions, their own failures and success, lack of success, their own problems, whatever they may be. That other people, groups, ideas are to blame. And imagine that that same group of people say, we will put you into a category, because we love categories and labels and we love to pigeonhole and do all this other stuff. And you will obtain a victimhood status. And our grievance police, our grievance industry will go into full red alert and full effect on your behalf. We will picket, and we will have signs that say god awful things, and we will scream and curse and incite violence, if not actually perpetrate violence, all for you and your particular grievance. And all you have to do is vote for us, speak on our behalf, keep the fires lit on our side of the political spectrum, and we can assuage your guilt for now until forever. You'll never have to take responsibility for it. You'll never have to worry about it. We will lift the burden of all this failure and lack of success and guilt and whatever else off your shoulders. Just say you're a victim. We're going to peddle victimhood and grievance, and we're going to share it with the world. Imagine a world, a country where more and more people, especially the young, are told that what ails them isn't their fault. That their failures are the result of other people doing something that caused you to fail. What is going to happen to you as a victim? You're going to stop fixing yourself. You're going to stop looking inward and start looking outward. You're going to join in on the blame game because it's the easier path to take. You'll never get fixed, psychologically or otherwise. You will continue to suffer from whatever the problem is, because the grievance industry is interested in symbolism, not substance. And it's something I really have a problem with in our society, is we see symbolism everywhere. Ribbons, bumper stickers, people talking, talk, marching, carrying signs, screaming, getting in the faces of people they disagree with. But they never, ever constructively solve the problem. It's not meant to be solved. In fact, I would postulate that it's not, they don't want it to be solved. Because the longer a grievance can be felt by victims, the longer these people can have power over the victims. The longer they can be in power helping the victims. So nothing of substance ever occurs. It's all symbolic. And the sheeple and other morons in this country who are surrounded by this symbology think things are actually being done simply by somebody putting a ribbon on their lapel. Simply by somebody saying how bad something is. Simply by some celebrity walking in a march and speaking in front of a crowd. And then they go home to their $1 million mansions and forget all about it. Symbology is a great trap. but there's no substance behind it. And there's not meant to be any. So while they're got these people wrapped around their finger, they're able to push an agenda. But what's happening to the victims, or the created victims, while they're not fixing themselves, while they're busy blaming others, this never gets fixed. And if it happens that they cross paths with somebody whose psychological makeup might be a little iffy, might be on the fence, teetering into insanity or sociopathic, psychopathic tendencies, then you got a real problem on your hands. Because what you basically just said to these people is you just given them a hall pass. You just given them license to kill. Because now it's not just blaming another group for your failures or your problems or your issues. Now you've coupled it with a psychological problem that's going to make this person decide to take it out on others. Because solve their problem. And by blaming others physically rather than just mentally or with words, they're going to cross that line because of their psychosis, their issues, their mental problems. They're going to cross the line from simply blaming others to decide to seek revenge. And the fuel, the accelerant, the spark that gave them the pass, that gave them the okay sign, the move on, go do that voodoo that you do so well, and it's okay by us, is given to them by the grievance industry from the left. I say that knowing full well that a lot of you people out there, especially if you have any sympathy for the left or left wing yourself, are saying, how can you say it's only the left to blame when you guys do this and you guys say that and you got no, you can't get away with that crap. As I mentioned, both the left and the right blame the other side, but with the right, that's where it stops. The right, conservatives specifically, we don't advocate victimhood. We don't advocate a lack of self-responsibility. We did not create an entire industry of grievance to perpetuate our left-wing BS and to control people. We don't advocate taking matters into your own hands. We don't advocate. This is all the left. So you can't blame right-wingers. And you can't say that simply saying something against your opposition is enough to turn people into mass murderers. Because people have been saying stuff to each other about it, even worse than today, as I've said before, politically anyway, about the other side, both right and left, going back centuries. And when I say worse than today, I'm talking about bringing everyone's family into it and blow the belt as a regular basis in political arguments and speech. That was the norm back in the day. But there was no mass shootings back then. There wasn't a regular, ongoing issue with mass shootings. That's now. So one has to say, what is different about now, the last 10 to 15 years, that was not the case prior to that? And the answer is obvious. we're not seeing the end result yet, but the consequences of a society that has been under the rule, a culture I should say, that has been under the rule of the left for almost 60 years, is eventually going to show and manifest itself in negative ways. It's going to start showing signs of dystopian, totalitarian, socialist destruction. And it's going to start showing signs of societal breakdown and chaos. We're nowhere near the end of the end result. If progressivism and liberalism is left unchecked, we have a long way to go to see the end of what's going to happen if that continues to be left unchecked. But even while we're trying to check it and forestall it and slow it down and hopefully some cases actually stop parts of it, some of it continues on. And eventually it leads to a dystopian society and eventually leads to chaos. And as we move into the future and our left-wing culture continues to survive, if not thrive, in many cases, things are going to get worse. And one of those things that are going to get worse are mass shootings. People are going to start taking what the liberals have been feeding them through the media, through academia, through schools, through colleges, higher and lower education, through numbers of other outlets, and they're going to start to take it to heart. They're going to be born into it. An entire generation now, the millennials, have known nothing but absolute, unvarnished liberalism in their lives. And they're starting to act out. They're starting to take matters into their own hands because some of them can't deal with all the crap the liberals are feeding them about people who happen to disagree with them, God forbid. It's now, while they're not condoning mass shootings, the left is transferring all of the guilt and blame that they have for creating this and immediately go after the right. Hillary Clinton, big freaking shock, spent no time wasted before going after guns following this incident. Color me blown away. Wasted no time. Right for the guns. The gun was already illegal. Her banned gun includes automatic rifles. The left's need to ban guns already include automatic rifles. It's already an illegal weapon. And he got it anyway. As we were saying, if you make illegal weapons illegal, or criminal, only criminals will have them. Name one instance where a carry and conceal person, a person who had a license to carry and conceal a weapon, ever went on a mass shooting. Never happened. There's a reason for that. The law-abiding people who have guns are not the problem, but they're the ones getting hurt. Every time morons like Clinton bark about guns as the problem. Again, it's more transference. Unless they're have psychological issues themselves, they should know damn well that guns are not really the issue. That's an excuse. That's a band-aid that does not solve the problem, does not find the cure. Does not recognize the problem. And as long as we're not recognizing it, we're never going to solve it. This culture does not allow, because of political correctness, does not allow us to call a spade anymore. There used to be a time when somebody saw something bad, they'd call it out, say it's bad. They'd shame the perpetrator into straighten their act out or get away. We don't do that anymore. We're too afraid. We've been cowed. And in that society that the left has made, it's all gray and morals are relative and all this other stuff, where they need to thrive, because they cannot thrive in the antiseptic sunlight. They're more like rats and cockroaches. They need the dark, and they need the back rooms, and they need the security of obscurity to do their foul deeds. In this gray world they live in, they've created an excuse for bad behavior and victims. And the victims are starting to act out. They're starting to say, I understand from what I've been taught that it's one thing to, it's not only okay to hate people who disagree with me and what I was taught, but it's also okay to feel that I am not to blame for anything that happens to me in my life. That it's okay for me not to blame myself for my own shortcomings, to not try to fix them, to find blame in others. And if I happen to be the right guy or the wrong guy, and I have a little bit of a psychological issue, I'm also going to think it's okay to do something about it. All those groups I was taught are my enemy. All those groups I was taught to hate are now, and try to make me a victim, and made me a victim, are now going to be my victim. Payback, revenge, whatever. I'm going to make them pay because they made me pay. And I think that how I've been taught tells me that that's okay. In fact, I'll even go one further and prove it. There's been a number of incidences lately where left-wing people on the news, maybe the most radical of them, but again, we're seeing a trend and we're getting more radical here and more outspoken. There was a number of people from Antifa or Black Lives Matter, or people who are copacetic with their way of thinking, who spoke out on mainstream media talk shows and news programs. Really, they're just opinion shows. They're no longer giving you the news, but a number of them over the last number of weeks who literally said that violence should not be taken off the table in response to the words of people they don't agree with, because they believe now that the words are so dangerous that the only way to protect themselves and society or whatever is to violently oppose them. Whatever happened to sticks and stones? I don't know. I was bullied as a child. I didn't blame myself. I blamed them, but I didn't make myself a victim. I didn't think of myself as some kind of victim in any way. I understood that this was their problem, a you problem, not a me problem, but I also understood that I had a responsibility not to perpetrate the violence that they themselves were perpetrating. That many of the bullying that they gave me was simply words. And if it was simply words, violence was never going to be my response. You answer words with words. If you want to answer violence with violence, that's a different story. But answering violence or answering words with violence is a no-no, a line that should never be crossed. And yet these liberals said, go ahead and cross that line. And you think there's no coincidence that more and more people are thinking that violence is the answer? In their protests and their rioting and their mass shooting? It's all connected. So, think about it. Who's really to blame here? It's a hard place to go. But until we identify it, until we go there, it's never going to get solved. Catch you on the next one. Bye.